there, Adventure Machines subscribers. It's been a while since I've made an update, and so figured it was about time. Long enough for me to grow a beard, and also make some fairly significant progress on the 280Z project. So a while ago I had started the process of shifting things around. I cut this whole section of the radiator support out and rebuilt it all. I shifted the radiator that way an inch and shaved the side pieces down, made this basically as narrow as I could to accommodate that hole right there, which ultimately is going to have a tube that goes up into that guy right there. But in and amongst all of that, I also cut this section out of the inner fender, and then shaped this sheet metal part to allow the intake air filter basically to go through where that little hole is right there. I've yet to finish that out, but all of that took a bunch of work because basically there was nothing here, and there was nothing to hold the intercooler in place, so made that bracket, made it so that all of this came over as close as it possibly could without hitting the frame. And then the bracket here, modified the output of the intercooler, made it so it fit through there and looked correct. Made this bracket right here that bolts on, so it basically sandwiches this and the radiator to then support the intercooler. So all of that sheet metal work had to be done before I could paint anything, and so I painted it gray because I dislike black in an engine bay because it's really hard to see things. But so the engine was in, and I did all of that work. I finished out the major work on the intake manifold, which included a throttle body plate, setting up where the throttle cable attaches, putting in a plate. I've yet to drill the holes here for all the different things that are come out of here, like going to the booster, the brake booster, which is going to come off of that guy right there. So I still need to do fuel pressure, blow off valve, and one or two other things. But anyway, I've got a list somewhere. I'm going to get that all figured out. Exhaust is in, but for whatever reason it's really close right there, which I don't recall exactly why I built it that close. I suspect that because I was originally, when I set it all up, I was using the original engine mounts and the original transmission mount that's way back in there, and also, by the way, it's a completely different transmission, that now the engine's basically in a different spot. So I may end up having to rebuild this section to get clearance there, and get it to seal properly here. It's a little, I don't know, it's probably going to leak, but I'll figure it out. So the number 6 cylinder water feed line is built to come in here to under the thermostat. So that AN line will just fit in right there. This line right here goes above the thermostat. This is the return line from the turbo. which this sequence of putting this all in here is pretty tight, because getting back in there to those bolts is difficult, to say the least. But it's in and it's tight. I still need to tighten the compressor housing, but that's easy to get to all these different bolts. Let's get that figured out. So the feed lines are right there. They got some Adel clamps on where the stock air conditioning unit would have been. Those lines run basically behind the damper in the front of the oil pan. Still need to secure them up right here. The water feed for the intercooler comes from the pressure side of the water pump. So I drilled and tapped into the front housing. And then there's actually two oil feeds here. So this is the stock oil feed, where the oil pressure sensor usually just screwed in there. I drilled and tapped this additional boss that goes back into the pressure side of the oil system. So this is where the oil is going to come for the intercooler. And what else? So this is a alternator from a 280ZX, later model one. It's a little bit bigger unit. So it should be rated for 70 amps. There's down the road I might go to a 90 amp from a mid 90s Maxima, but that requires more work than this I had. So this bracket I modified. This was from a VG30DE, the V6 300ZX, but I like it better because it's a fixed point here and it's got a jack screw. Just a totally better setup, but I had to add basically 4 inches in the middle to make this all fit correctly. Fresh belt. Working on getting the ignition wiring done for the coil on plug. And the idea is that basically the drivers are going to sit over here next to the battery. Be doing a similar thing for the injectors. So all the injector wires are going to run along here. The harness is going to come up, run over, and terminate over here where the injector driver is going to sit. Possibly, I might route that back to that hole over there and go directly to the ECU. I haven't completely solidified that yet, but really happy with how the paint turned out. Went in and cleaned all of this area where the window wiper motor is. Made sure it was all clean. Put some additional seam sealer on things and painted it all. So we're all good there. Went through, knocked all of the original undercoating off of the inside of the inner fender wells, which I figured out a convenient way to make that all happen, and then recoated with new stuff and then painted it gray. It's turned out pretty good. But gosh, what else? Throttle body this is a unit from Crown Vic 4.6 liter Ford mod motor. It's a 65 millimeter, and this cable pull is a custom setup that I modified and basically welded to the end of this piece to make it all work. So that's nice and tidy. The transmission and shifter and all of that is in. One of the things that I had to do is I had to cut the tunnel out a little bit to clearance for the rubber seal, basically. This is from a 300ZX, and so is the screw plate and all that. So made that much easier to get in. Went through and made sure that the shifter was all rebuilt and nice and tight. And this billiard ball is from our old race car from back in the 90s, so I figured it would be fitting to go back on here. But hiding back here is got a nice leather shift boot to replace the old nasty cracked one, so that'll look nice and tidy. But yeah, so the big thing is, oh, I got the blow-off valve, all this ready to go. So this is all set right here. So it's a nice tight package. It goes, the blow-off valve piece goes in here, and then the throttle body. So now it's just getting the new wiring put in place and getting things like that hooked back up and through its holes. I stand on my head in the footwell to get the clutch back attached to its master cylinder. That one's going to be a pain. I've done this one once already, and it's not easy, but it's not as bad as that one. That one's tough. But yeah, that's about it for now. And of course, the list, which still is a fair amount to be done, but yeah, making progress. Need to get all of this wrapped up to the point where I can get it back out or back down on its wheels, so that I can get back onto getting this done, so I can get this all cleaned up, because I've just been thrashing and my shop is an absolute disaster. But I did reorganize enough that I could actually get over all the way over there and all that other stuff. But it's coming together slowly. Got the exhaust system in, so I basically kind of Frenched this all in. I'm going to put a plate, cover that up where the stock exhaust tip came out, but cut that all in. It's a nice snug fit. Goes up in there, stays out of the way of everything. Powers down underneath, nice and tight. So, unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to do some work on the forward section of the exhaust, but that's just the way it is. So, enjoy. I'll try and make some more updates here in the next couple days as of making progress on plugging all the bits and pieces in, like getting that all back in and all that made, so that all the charge tubing. Got to get the brake lines back in. They're just sitting up there on top of the press. That's pretty much it. So we'll talk to you later, guys.